I'm Hilary Irons, Gallery and Exhibitions Director at the University of New England in Portland and Biddeford, Maine. Welcome to Studiolab, a remote studio visit series. I'd like you to meet Andy Rosen, a faculty member here at UNE and an artist who has gained recognition through his site-specific sculptural work, which speaks to current themes in both visual art and environmental science. Hi, Andy. It's great to see you. Thanks for inviting us to your studio.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to have people down in my basement.
Your work has a sense of experimentation and humor surrounding the natural sciences. Our relationships with animals and with the environment are examined and expanded in the context of kinetic, site-specific sculpture and mysterious painted scenes. How would you describe your creative proximity to science?
I think I'm using science. I've been thinking a lot about this idea of like data or data, and like I'm not intentionally gleaning the internet or books or whatever for scientific information. I think it's more like we're in an era in which there's a lot of data about the world, and then my frame of reference of like desiring pleasure from the world or something like that, like butts up against the data. It's like you look at something beautiful or something that feels beautiful to me in the world, and I'm like, oh, and there's global warming. Or like, oh, there's so many dioxins in that thing that you're looking at, that like beautiful foam formation. So it's like I'm not setting out with a goal of using science, but it's like the science is definitely, I mean, like I'm paying attention to it and I'm like constantly studying things based on whatever is compelling or interesting to me. But it's like, it's not intentionally foundational to the process. It's more like there's just a lot of information out there, and it's the data is the thing that I'm sort of checking my sense of wonder against or something like that.
One of the things I love about your work is the way it seems to contain a narrative direction, but it also asks viewers to fill in the blanks in those narratives. Can you talk about the role of narrative in your work, or about the artist as storyteller?
When I was a kid, I used to visit my dad's office. He's a child psychologist, and he had a dollhouse in his office with lots of different toys and action figures, and like they were all from all different sort of brands and kinds and styles and puppets and things like that. And he was using that as a way of facilitating communication between himself and his young clients. But I saw it as something else. And I think I saw it as a way of creating narrative and arranging things. Then I would take my toys and action figures and like place them in the landscape. And I wasn't like this kind of like play where I would like animate them or do anything like that. It was just like I would place them in a location that I thought was really interesting, compelling, or like the scale fit, like part of my road washed out as a kid, and it made this wonderful sort of like mini Grand Canyon. And there was also like, because the road washed out, there was like this little bit of element of danger, and it was great. And like, so there was narrative there. But I think the other way in which I've been thinking about the idea of narrative is more like, I think that my brain, probably like a lot of people's, operates from metaphor. It's like my understanding of the world is like, and to continue the sort of the data or science thing, it's like my understanding of things, like I need a metaphor to process that information. And the metaphor for me is a way to sort of like test the idea, like what does that actually mean in the real world? But I don't think I really knew this until recently, but it's just like, it's the way in which if I operate in the landscape. And so Thinking about a piece from 2015 that called Unpack, that was a pack of wild dogs installed on the Portland Pier, and they're sort of taxidermy. They're handmade, all of it, fake fur and whatnot. But that's that process of like me placing things and telling a story out in the landscape just a million years later.
Thank you, Andy. That's really interesting. I'm so happy to learn more about your process, about your work, about the things that are inspiring to you. Thank you so much for sharing your studio with us today, and I look forward to seeing what you make next. Thanks.